tell you the problem with the scientific power that you're using here. It didn't require any discipline to attain it. Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
While they were debating dinosaurs in Jurassic Park there, some are now saying they didn't stop and think if they should when it comes to data centers that may soon expand into space. Yep, the facility is facing fierce public opposition over concerns they will pollute water, strain energy grids, and it could be sent into the cosmos. These so-called orbital data centers are proposed by big tech. It would be composed of millions of satellites launched into space, with some companies already seeking permits. But this advancement is not without warning. A petition pushed out this month claims these plans from Elon Musk's SpaceX, Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin, and more would release staggering levels of pollution that would probably alter the Earth's atmosphere and be, quote, catastrophic for the planet. For more, I'm now joined by Donovan, Director of Science Policy and Advocacy for Stand Up for Science and former White House science policy official. Cole, welcome to the show. We're so interested in this topic. First of all, if you can explain to me what these data centers, space data centers are, how are they different than the ones back here on Earth?
Well, so a space data center really isn't comparable to something that you would see on Earth. Whereas on Earth, you're seeing data centers that are these large warehouse-size objects. A space data center is really just a small box that's in orbit that contains a couple of computing units. And so that's why, you know, like in the image that you're showing there, you're seeing rows and rows and rows and rows of computers. We're talking about, you know, imagine each one of those rows being its own little box that's flying around the Earth at a rate of once every 90 minutes or so.
What kind of power and resources do they need?
So they would need to generate their own power. So that's why when you're talking about a data center in orbit, they would need to have very large solar panels, and they would also need to have extremely large radiators. So even though the box itself is pretty small, the actual object is about the same size as the International Space Station, about 70% of that size.
Wow. So there is a new petition. It claims these space data centers would release staggering levels of pollution that could alter the Earth's atmosphere. Again, it could be catastrophic for our planet. Explain why to me.
So basically, when you're re-entering the Earth's atmosphere, as a satellite comes down, most of the time the expectation is that they're going to burn up in orbit. And so when something burns up in orbit, all of that matter is not actually destroyed. It ends up entering the Earth's stratosphere. And the thing is that you have to remember that the atmosphere at that level is very thin, and that's also where the ozone layer is located. Now, the aluminum that is in the data centers poses a risk to the ozone layer. And basically, there was a study that was done early last year by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's Chemical Sciences Laboratory that suggested that the amount of aluminum entering the atmosphere based on projections before these data center projections, you know, or the permission to launch millions of these things went out, based on the expectation that there would be 60,000 by 2040. That was forecast to be enough to change the Earth's winds, as well as potentially have impacts on the ozone.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Would these satellites be different than the ones currently in orbit, or is it just the amount needed for these projects that would be issued to be sent up to space?
They're significantly different in terms of size and number, right? So when you think about Starlink right now, they have about 10,000 satellites in orbit. If they're putting a million satellites that are much, much larger than what you see previously, as those come back down to Earth, Starlink comes down about once or twice a day. You're talking about adding a considerable amount more material to the upper atmosphere.
These plans require approval from the FCC. Some are already seeking permits. Do you see the commission moving forward with this?
In the current environment, I would say that you've got an FCC that's very favorable to industry right now. The FCC does try to regulate things like satellite collisions, but for the moment, what SpaceX is really requesting permission for is for a spectrum license. One of the issues is that there really isn't a regulatory framework in place for these types of novel space activities. And the administration and previous administrations have been trying to address that so that the United States remains in compliance with our treaty obligations.
How soon could this happen, Cole?
It's really hard to tell because, a constellation of this size is something that requires a lot of material procurement. And when you're talking about launching 1 million satellites in order to, get the benefits that you need from something that's that large, versus what you see from a terrestrial data center, it's hard to imagine that any company, even SpaceX, would be able to require sufficient resources to do this successfully.
Decades, in your opinion?
I would never try to bet against Elon Musk's willingness to do this type of thing. They're trying to do this much faster than that, but I don't want to put a number on that right now.
Sure. All right, Cole, Donovan, this is a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.